What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale coming at you, as always, with my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. We are on to our final division offseason outlook, which hopefully did not get blown up before we published it. It is the Central Division. Before we get started, the usual reminders, please remember to subscribe to us wherever you consume us. We are on all platforms, including YouTube. Hit subscribe, like, comment, help the algorithm of us back, and on all your regular podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, the whole nine. Ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts do help us out a ton, so if you haven't done so, do that. If you have subscribed to us everywhere, please tell people about us. Retweet our promos, shout us out on Twitter, tell people about us, friends, family members, coworkers, random acquaintances on the street, anything to continue helping get the name out there. Join our Discord. I've had people in my DMs that I've persuaded to join our Discord because they're asking me a lot of questions that can be conversations in our Discord. The link to that is in the podcast and YouTube description. You also get to participate in things like that mock draft we did. And again, Grant and I don't have to talk as much if you guys are talking amongst yourselves, and it's cool to see your input and what you guys are all thinking about. So the Discord, join it. And finally, another way that you can support the show, and we strongly encourage you to do so, is purchase our merch. That can help get the name out, as well as make us a whopping 1% off of every single sale. The link to our store is in the podcast and YouTube description. You can see Grant rocking, if you're watching, the He's Sorry Mitchell Robinson shirt. Yes, we're recording home and homes. We don't just wear the same clothes over and over again.
Speak for yourself.
He's got a cup. I've got a sweatshirt. Go buy it. It's so spectacular. It's so thermonuclear AF. Grant, how the heck are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm glad you specified that we don't just wear the same clothes every day. That's helpful because otherwise people might not know. Can I ask also, have we discussed what the process is for getting certified being fantabulous? Is there a panel? Do I have to go before like a triumvirate? Are there tests? Like, do I have to do feats of strength?
You're actually under review.
Okay,
because it entails holding on to your Blink-182 tickets rather than selling them.
Well, I think it's good to have checks because you don't want to have tenure in your certification. You need to consistently prove that you warrant that certification. So I welcome that.
And I wonder if I should probably put myself in review, since I'm the only one who basically says certified fantabulous and coined it. That someone's you're gonna need to review me at some point because I can't just be, since I'm the origin point of it. That doesn't mean that I can just stay.
Yeah, we need someone to watch the watchers on this one.
Where does the lip ring? What does the lip ring do? Because our YouTube commenters and TikTokers seem very offended by it. Some variation of, but he has a lip ring, or why would I get B-ball? Opinions from someone with a lip ring is right up there with you don't watch Team X games now for us. And you know what? That's kind of a point of pride for me.
Well, it's worse than that because it's like, well, I mean, he has a lip ring, so clearly he can't analyze drop coverage. Like that's the connection being made. As opposed to he didn't watch the game, so he can't analyze drop coverage. That at least makes sense. It's wrong because you do watch them. But is that an invention of a new logical fallacy? It kind of feels close to that.
I have no idea, but my favorite one recently, because it happened just yesterday, so maybe that's why my favorite one is someone said, why would someone with any sports knowledge listen to a dude with a lip piercing? You all might attract some goofballs. So I said, why are you so I decided to respond. I said, why are you so offended by it? And they said, I'm not offended. It's just a sign of a man that's lost. I'm helping you not burn for all eternity.
Oh, wow. What a hard pivot. That's exciting. I didn't know that's where it was going.
I didn't respond to that one because I was honestly impressed. I was like, if you feel that strongly about it, you know what?
I don't feel that strongly about anything. I envy this guy. That's impressive. Wow. So you're damned, I guess. Sorry to hear it.
You know who's not damned? The first team in the Central Division that you're going to take us through. How's that for segue?
Well, they kind of are. But so this is the Chicago Bulls, assuming we have the alphabet right.
Oh yeah. Wow. I was in my head was clean.
Oh, you didn't have it right. You had the alphabet wrong. It was me last time. Now it's you.
The alphabet's so hard.
It's so hard. And you learn it early and then you use it all the time and you forget it. But I'm going to start with Chicago because CH comes before CL and all the other letter combinations in here. That's so great. This is all organic. These alphabet mistakes are so real everyone. And
Actually, it's a little concerning.
it's a little concerning. I can't listen to you.
The
The guy
alarm,
doesn't know the alphabet because he has a lip ring. That's the problem.
yeah, that's what, and also because I have a lip ring, I forgot to mention for anyone who hasn't listened to these before, I will be setting an alarm in the background to keep things moving. So
Yeah,
don't be alarmed when you hear the alarm. How's that? That's
bad.
lip ring humor right there.
Do not endorse. Key free agents for the Chicago Bulls. Nikola Vucevic, Ayo Dosunmu is restricted. Kobe White also restricted. Derek Jones Jr. Did I say Kobe? Kobe White. You put it. Geez, you and your spelling. Derek Jones Jr. Andre Drummond has a player option. Patrick Beverley is also a free agent. Patrick Williams, interesting extension candidate. Pretty hard to evaluate rookie year and subsequent seasons, but eligible for an extension nonetheless. The Bulls cap situation is basically that they should have the full mid-level exception to spend. They don't have any trade exceptions. So we do need to have a macro discussion about this team's overall direction, but probably first we should hit some of their needs, assuming they don't do a overhaul, blow up, whatever, tear down, whatever you want to call it, which spoiler alert, I will just endorse. But what do you think?
And the view rating drops at that point in the video.
Assuming they don't trade Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, blah blah blah.
So I've had a lot of Bulls fans say that they need a real point guard, and I disagree. I think if you had more shooting on this team, it would offset whatever inclination you have to get it. Like you have DeMar DeRozan, you have Zach LaVine, you have like Alex Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu. You won't have Lonzo Ball. That's really unfortunate. He's expected to miss all of next season. I really hope that we get to see him play basketball again because that absolutely sucks.
Yeah,
I would prioritize shooting, and can you upgrade the front line rotating? Like, this is also a team that could use some more true wings. It could use an upgrade at center from Nikola Vucevic, but I don't really know. He might have them in the bird rights trap just because who are you going to sign with the mid-level exception that's better than Nikola Vucevic, who had a solid year for them. And so the path is to continue trying to contend in the Eastern Conference. I think their biggest moves will happen via trade if they happen at all. But I think you have to re-sign Vooch. And then it's, can we acquire, like, I really like Max Strus for this team, or maybe even a Josh Richardson, just like a wing type who can shoot. Max Strus is a better fit in terms of volume and just like off ball motion and the difficulty on his 3-pointers. That's the route. If they're going to go continue to try and win around this core route, I think they need to prioritize shooting probably more in addition to, I guess, talent retention.
Yeah, I guess I think that's right. But yeah, just the idea that, like, really, DeRozan and LaVine are both better on the ball, certainly DeRozan than off. So I think the theory of the team, when Lonzo was healthy, it made perfect sense. He's a connector. Like Alex Caruso is not a, going to pick and roll point guard either. It's just, you have your offense. Maybe the term is like offensive initiators as opposed to point guards. You sort of have that. And then certainly you have that if you bring White back or Dosunmu or both. Seems unlikely, but yeah. So I want to do the macro question here real quick before our timer dings at us. Do you bring Vucevic back? If so, for how much? Do you entertain trading LaVine? Like, what are your tear down or tear down adjacent thoughts? Because my position is kind of for a while been like, this team is, not Wizards level, but they're just kind of chasing mediocrity. They gave up all these picks in the Orlando trade, which finally that thing's complete now. All those picks have conveyed, and just, the further we get away from it, the worse it looks. So my inclination would be to make some wholesale changes and start over. Do you subscribe to that, like in total, in part? What are your thoughts macro on the Bulls?
I would subscribe to it in total, I think. And I also believe, and I think a lot of Bulls fans are on that train. Like, it seems from just like what I've seen them say that they're all in if this organization were to actually rebuild. And unless there's a deal out there, which is really tough to build because you do owe that 2025 pick to San Antonio. It's top 10 protected, but it leaks out a little bit. So it makes pulling off your own big trade really difficult unless someone's ridiculously high on Patrick Williams and that Blazers pick that is protected through 2028 coming to you. I think you get a lot. I don't know what you get for DeMar DeRozan going into the final year of his deal. That's really tough. And I think you get a good amount for Zach LaVine, though. I think people have overblown the state of his contract, even in this new CBA climate. You're not going to get like this Bradley Beal-esque return. In part, he doesn't have a no trade clause. He's also a player that I think would be more open to more. He doesn't have the connection to the organization that Damian Lillard does to Portland, where you're going to say, well, we're going to send you where you want to go. They would work with the player, I'm sure, but you could send him to more destinations and I think I don't think you're going to get a Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert type haul, but again, all it takes is one team. You might get the equivalent of 3-4 first-round picks or prospects, and that's a good launching point for your rebuild. I think you could get a first-round pick for Alex Caruso. What is interesting is as part of any tear, I think, could you get at least a first-round pick for DeMar DeRozan? I don't mean to – he's been unreal for them the past 2 seasons. But, like, are you the bank on knowing his age, his specific fit, and like if you're the Bulls and you want to win, or if you're another team and you want that version of DeMar DeRozan, you're just banking on bonkers shot making in high leverage situations where you're almost waiting for him to fall off.
Yeah, he's a very specific fit that you have to have the right type of players around, I think, to make sense. But as like an expiring that you could just come for you, I'm struggling to think of the team that like a really good team that needs offense, because chances are you're not going to become a really good team if you just don't have a bunch of ways to score.
Well, but yeah, I think Lakers give up their pick and like take him into cap space, or maybe you work it. They could do the Bamba Beasley thing for DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, I don't hate it because, well, they're a perfect example of it. Their defense was great, and then they struggled to score all season and in the playoffs, even after they remade the roster. So yeah, that's a fit in the LA thing if you want to factor that into. I think he's absolutely worth a first. It's going to take. He's worth a first to the right team. But the quote unquote right team is probably limited to like 8 or 10 teams.
I have a team.
Let me hear.
I don't know if anyone's talked about. You could build it. It would probably take 2 contracts, one of which right off the bat, and then you have to figure it out from there. Boston needs another ball handler.
The theory is he prevents those bogged down possessions where the ball swings around and they generate nothing, basically.
Much iffier this side of the Kristaps Porzingis trade, I would think.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
How much you give if it's Brogdon plus salary plus then the asset, what does Chicago want for it?
That's interesting. I would not have thought of Boston, but I mean, look, the problem with the Porzingis trade is it did not address the team's and also DeRozan's a pretty good passer too. Like
he's a very good passer.
It's not just he's going to get you the 16-footer. He's going to get into his space and then find somebody maybe. Yeah, I think he does. The Porzingis trade did not address that deficiency in Boston's offense. I think a DeRozan move would. That's just like, I'd never thought of that. I don't know how to wrap my head around that one yet, but that's pretty interesting. That's why you get paid the big bucks, I think.
I don't. Yeah, the big bucks. Sorry, I don't think the Bulls would they saddle themselves with the health risk of we already paying Lonzo and now Brogdon's playing, but like the Clippers refused that trade. That's just a team. Like I think there are teams out there that would give you a first. So my point was, what gets interesting is if you're tearing it down, are you keeping or moving Patrick Williams with his extension eligibility?
Yeah, follow-up question. What's the number for him? Because that informs whether you're keeping just some of the oh man, we're already through the Bulls. Real quick, is Patrick Williams, he's been disappointing. Is that fair to say? As number 4 pick, like hasn't
he somewhat feels buried in the offensive pecking order though. So I just don't know if he's been, and there was the injuries at the start. I would say he has failed to meet expectations. Okay. Yes, is a fair way to put it.
And yet career 41.4% 3-point shooter, not a ton of volume, but 2.6 attempts per game. He's played 170 games. Like that's not nothing. Can defend, is like a big forward that like somewhere in there, and he's going into his age 22 season. So I think if I'm rebuilding, I probably keep him around, assuming I can do it for nothing more than like solid starter money, I think.
So DeAndre Hunter's contract, like 4 for $90.
That feels really scary, but the cap's going up. I mean, probably not that high, but that's not insane.
Anything? What's the number on Vooch? You're like, because this
0.
team is gonna try and compete. If you're keeping Vooch, like, what's the number where it's? I don't know who's giving it to him, which is the other thing that's funny. Like, who's giving Vooch on the market, the mid-level? Honestly, I'm just.
Oh no, I was gonna say mid-level. I don't want to pay more than the mid-level for him. Like, and that's just on his numbers and whatever. He's a very skilled player, but it's just that's where we are with that player type for me.
I think if you could do like 2 years, 30 would be ideal, because then it's sort of a contract that you could move.
Yeah. But the whole idea of moving him is just like there's no demand for that player.
Well, it's just as a salary matching tool because Lonzo Ball is not going to be that for you anymore. It's like a $15 million salary anchor is pretty valuable.
Yeah.
Maybe you throw him a team option on a year 3 to make it feel like he could win Vucevic gets a 3-year, $60 million deal from Chicago or whatever.
I like that. Yeah. We got to get to Cleveland though, right? Was this the team you were thinking of, or are we farther off in the alphabet?
No. This is the team I was thinking of.
All right. Free agents of note here: Karis LeVert, Danny Green, Robin Lopez, Howell Neto, and Dylan Windler. Isaac Okoro is eligible for an extension. They should have the full MLE, and they have a trade exception of $3.9 million for Ochai Agbaji. Like you can't talk about the Cavs without they need a 3-and-D wing, right? Like that's where we have to start. And how are they getting that in a market with basically none of them?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like Max,
I don't expect you to answer that question.
I think the options would be like, and you're kind of like loosely into like Harrison Barnes, who slipped on defense, but I think he could play the 3 on this team. Will he go for the mid-level? Josh Richardson's a good name. I feel like Max Strus is going to get more than the mid-level, but he would be good. He leads more 3 than D, but he'll try. Those are names that you could consider. But I think, and this is why we're worried about this podcast being ruined before it goes up, is that Brian Windhorst was alluding to some pretty inflammatory things involving the Cavs while he was on ESPN Tuesday. I don't know what those are. My guess would be you're not trading Garland, you're not trading Mitchell, you're not trading Mobley, and so it's okay. Jared Allen for who?
Yeah.
And it's not OG Anunoby because I'm assuming the Raptors are just going to re-sign Pirtle. And you're not getting Pirtle and Anunoby for Allen plus salary, I wouldn't think, anyway. Although is Jared Allen? No, OG Anunoby is more valuable than Jared Allen when you're looking at playoffs and stuff. Yeah. But is Jared Allen for who? He's been linked to the Pelicans. I don't like, what are you getting? Like, unless they're giving you Herb Jones, who's not really...
I'm doing that in a heartbeat if I'm Cleveland.
3. He like connected on his Pelicans fans. I told me, well, look what he shot from 3 from 6. It's like, yeah, it was on 2 attempts a game. Like that's not. You're getting into the same. Isaac Okoro shot really well from 3 for most of last year, and then that tapered off. So it's you very rarely see the big for wing trades. Although we just saw one with basically Smart for Porzingis. Like who really wants Jared Allen and is then giving you what you need? And then also I would say, I know it was a problem with him. The other thing this team kind of needed now was I don't want to say a backup big, but like someone who's going to rebound and has size.
Yeah. I just figured out the trade. It's probably illegal. Sign and trade Dante DiVincenzo and Kevon Looney for Jared Allen, and the Warriors just get Jared Allen. And I just, that's terrible. No. I think, before we talk about targets, scenario where you feel comfortable with Okoro, for example, and LeVert coming back and just hoping that one or the other figures out how to slot into that fifth starter role. Like we've done enough, right? We know enough, I think.
If you want to bring them back with the intention of, okay, we're going to move them in the middle of the season, like, okay, fine. But this is not the theory of this team now. Is just LeVert's never going to be that. He played better defensively than I thought he would. Mm-hmm. And Okoro shot the ball really well for most of last year, but we saw what's going to happen in the playoffs with him. It's they need that player on this team. And it doesn't have to be super high end, but they need that player. And right now, Isaac Okoro is the closest they come. I don't view him as that player.
Yeah. Like Torrey Craig doesn't move the needle, although he'd probably be an upgrade.
He moves the needle, which is maybe the end. Like who's more likely to stay on the floor as a 3-and-D guy in the playoffs? Karis LeVert, Torrey Craig, or Isaac Okoro? And the answer is Torrey Craig. And it's not like Karis LeVert is the better scorer, ball handler, but that's not what this team needs.
Yeah. What do you think about DiVincenzo, even though I mentioned him jokingly? Because the mid-level might get him.
Is he a good enough shooter?
Well, he was last year, but has never been before, so that's the problem.
You're really small then, too.
He's really more of a 1-2 defender than a 3 defender. But I mean, like just looking down the list, it's not long till you get to Josh Richardson, whom you mentioned, and it's like that's just not. I'm not inspired by that. I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, we've kind of gone through a lot of these.
You know what you could potentially work? Would it be? I don't know. I don't know. Would Brooklyn even do this? Dorian Finney-Smith and Nick Claxton for Jared Allen?
I think Claxton might be close to as good as Allen on their own. Like I mean, I don't think so. I don't think Brooklyn's saying yes to that. But
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Alex Caruso and Patrick Williams for Jared Allen.
Ooh, that's exciting. I would do that for the Cavs, I
I
think.
would too, which makes me think that Chicago probably wouldn't.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Do you have anything else on the Cavs? I mean, this is, again, like you said, something crazy is
They're not
probably going to happen
flipping.
here.
They're not flipping Jared Allen for Tim Hardaway Jr., right?
No way. No
I'm
way.
just
I
making
mean,
sure. I'm just trying. Like, who's the team that's coming in? Be like, hey, we're giving a bunch of stuff for Jared Allen. Right? I don't think Jared Allen's on a bad contract. I'm just saying, I think he's really good. We look. We apologize to Jared Allen at the end of every single one of these podcasts.
right.
But I just, I don't know. And he has to be the guy that we can agree on that, right? Win horses. That's the guy he's leading.
It's just process of elimination, unless it's a total bombshell and it's like, well, Donovan Mitchell has decided he really would like to get to the Knicks now. Like that doesn't seem like it's in the cards. Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see. Fascinating to see how irrelevant all of our analysis on this team will be.
I will say I'm not worried about the Cavs. I think people really blew out of proportion. They're still their core, their base of their team is still so young. Well, I do think they need 3-and-D players. And like the Dean Wade stuff, like you can't just have Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro and expect that to be. But they're so good. They're so good.
I think the expected outcome for a team giving huge minutes to guys as young as Garland and Mobley was what happened. Like that, it would have been more of a surprise if the Cavs had gone on a deep run with guys that young in major roles. Speaking of young, this team is even younger, and they are next alphabetically as well. The Detroit Pistons. Key free agents here. Alec Burks has a team option. Did he pick that up yet? I don't know.
I have not seen any news on
it. Unsure. Hamadou Diallo, Rodney Magruder, Corey Joseph. Extension eligible Isaiah Stewart and James Wiseman, two of their center logjam members. The Pistons do have about 30 million or almost 30 million in cap space. Interesting to see if they become a salary dump ground. Kind of seems unlikely based on how they've operated in the past. See Bojan Bogdanovic, see their interest in Jeremy Grant again, which would be just a wild full circle thing. So no notable trade exceptions. This is a young team that needs kind of everything up and down the roster. It's kind of the same theory as, you don't draft for fit if you're high in the lottery. I think free agency, if they do choose to spend, you could kind of do it anywhere. So long as you're not doing anything that, minimizes, say, like Cade Cunningham's, I don't know what you'd possibly do to put something in the way of Cade Cunningham, or you don't want to take Jaden Ivey's reps away, things like that. But what do you see as their needs? Who do you like as potential options for them?
I think they need like wings and shooting. It would be nice if they could get them in the same player, but they've been linked heavily, and I'm not as against it. I think when you look at how many big types are on this roster with Isaiah Stewart and James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, and Jalen Duren, does paying Cam Johnson make a ton of sense? He's played for Monty Williams before. He's he's one of the best off motion scorers in the league, has a little bit of a floor game that he can attack with. I still view him as more of a pure 4 than someone who you're going to want to play at the 3. And then even things could get dicey defensively if he's your 4 and Bojan Bogdanovic is your 3. But then you're also probably playing with so much size because Jalen Duren will be your 5. Cade Cunningham will be on the court. And then you have Jaden Ivey. I love that lineup. I'm not going to lie. I love that lineup. But then it's like, okay, well, where does Ausar Thompson fit into this? I'm just of the mind, not that I don't care about the fit. You don't have I like Jalen Duren. There's not a big on this roster that if you think someone is a great long-term fit or that they're going to elevate the performance of Thompson, Ivey, and Cunningham, there's not big on this roster I view as untouchable or that you should plan around. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to go and you view him as gettable, or even if you're just going to blow up the price tag for Brooklyn, yeah, you go give Cam Johnson the 4-year, $120 million offer sheet if you feel inclined to do so. Where do you land on that for them?
Oh, I'm in the business of giving Cam Johnson
I meant for we know that you think Cam Johnson's worth $60 million a year. We've established that. But for this team specifically,
I don't have any problem with the fit. I think you just hope that one of those 5s, like Stewart, I think is certainly the most known commodity. But I would argue he probably has the lowest ceiling, although Wiseman's running out of time to prove that true. I have no problem with Johnson just as a straight 4 alongside any of those guys. And if you move one of them down the line, fine. If you just hang on to all of them and assume one will be hurt and another one, just flops and you develop the third, like there's, again, hiring Monty Williams and paying him $1 zillion and some of the other things like keeping and extending Bogdanovic and, not trading Alec Burks at the deadline last year. Like all these things suggest that the Pistons are looking to win, or at least win more But I just look at the roster and it's like Cunningham's played a year. Ivy, growing pains all over the place last year. Thompson, I think, is probably going to be even rawer than will be more raw than Ivy. Like you've got all. It's honestly, this is a team I view. If I were running it, I'm taking on bad money into that cap space with picks attached. I'm just kind of throwing all these young guys out there and kind of seeing what it looks like. So yeah, I mean, that makes for bad pod because I'm not going to look at a bunch of free agents and trade options, but I kind of just like the idea of looking at this for what it is, which is a rebuild that is like not far along because you don't really know that much about anybody that you have. That's not how Pistons are treating it. I think they're very much looking to start winning more, kind of like Houston.
Do you? I was going to say the contract they gave Monty made me think that they're not operating on this accelerated timeline.
I think the contract.
Also, I think there would have been more noise with the Thompson pick if they were more worried about. I think a lot of Pistons fans, what I gather, were worried that they might not have taken the remaining Thompson brother if he was on the board. Well, I mean, he was going to be on the board because it would be viewed as too long term of a play.
Well, why then are they keeping veterans through the deadline and things like that? It just
I think
asset preservation. You think? I mean,
no, I think it's looking at it from the perspective of how can we make the lives easier for the development of. They're already trying to play with two bigs. At least we think maybe Cam Johnson gets them away from that. Which hey, there's value in that. But having shooting just in the form of Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic, you could. If you're saying they should take the long-term route, like I would still be targeting. I don't care if I have to overpay them. Bring me shooting just to open up the floor for all these guys who need it now. Cade, Jaden Ivey, or Sir Thompson.
Great point.
By the way, his jump shot, I trust it more than on men's. I don't know where you land on that, but watching them, neither of us have gotten into it too much. I don't mean
no. I think that's right, but that's to say I don't trust either of them much at all. So
fair.
So by that logic, then it's Cam Johnson for sure. That makes a ton of sense in terms of free agency. I mean, then but as far as like guys you could spend a significant amount on, there aren't a ton of like, as you say, like
Max
Strus. Yeah. I mean, but then other than the playoffs, he's like not always the most reliable 3-point shooter.
He shot under 32% in the playoffs this year too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So full stop. He's not reliable.
I mean, he's taken like 9 per 36 minutes and he's coming around like him and Bojan open up the floor. I think I'm with you in the sense that can you check two boxes where it's okay. If the Mavericks were looking to get off Tim Hardaway Jr., do we get compensated and get a shooter that way type deal? Like I would, if I'm them, I want to make clear, I'm not going after, they've been linked to Jeremy Grant, Chris Middleton. I'm not going after those guys because I don't think they provide enough 3-point volume.
It is the cap relief they would provide the Heat for taking on Duncan Robinson enough to just get Duncan Robinson. Like, I don't know what the scenario is where
the Heat are talking about waiving and stretching Kyle Lowry to keep Gabe Vincent. So I'm going to assume yes.
So if you're talking about movement shooters and guys that are going to open up the offense and draw attention away, I mean, just give the draft compensation or whatever. Like maybe you get a pick with Duncan. I think Duncan Robinson rehabbed his value enough to where it's like the Heat aren't paying to get off that contract. But if, they also don't want to give him that much money with their cap situation. So like, just take him on, swing a deal for him.
That was tough because it's 3 years. Whereas like, if you could just pay Tim Hardaway Jr. or Max Strus for 2 years, it just feels a lot more palatable.
Maybe they're a Bertans destination. Maybe Bertans
So we basically both let on, we're okay with them throwing all the money at Cam Johnson, but anyone else is just like sort of a no-go. And another player, Toronto's going to be looking to cut money. Gary Trent Jr. wouldn't be awful here. You have like enough size with Sir Thompson and Cade Cunningham to where I don't know if you want to play Gary Trent Jr. or Jaden Ivey with both of them, but you could certainly he could fit in the rotation, especially off the bench.
Yeah, I like that fine.
He's also like only 17 years old or something. Gary Trent Jr. is like the king of being super young.
Well, if we're going to talk Cam Johnson, I feel like the next gradation down is, not quite as good at any of it as PJ Washington. If you're going to throw an offer sheet out there, like he's not the shooter.
I'd rather them go Grant Williams. Feels like he provides more reliable shooting.
Grant Williams makes sense too. Yeah, you always have to start with Cam and then you bump down to the other couple guys. Do you have any trade? You mentioned Gary Trent because he's obviously not opting out, but
do you know who would be spicy trade target for them? Oh, you're not going to answer? I'm waiting. Larry Markkinen would be great on this team.
He can't play small forward, Dan. We've already discussed.
He can play the 4.
That's true. I did just say none of their bigs are good enough to move someone off a position.
And when you're talking about shooters that maybe you could trade for, I already mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr., Gary Trent, or even, I don't think Indy, you have to give up stuff for him, but Buddy Hield, maybe the Nets are looking to get off Joe Harris. The other name I thought of is just, I know Atlanta already cut money, but like what's going on with DeAndre Hunter, and does he give you enough shooting to really think about it? So you didn't want to pay Sadiq Bey. Do you want to pay, DeAndre Hunter on his contract? But I think there are teams that will be looking to move contracts that would provide Detroit with shootings, where I think they're straddling the lines that we're saying both of them should, where you might be more nuclear rebuild than I am at this point. But
yeah, no, I think that's fair. We move on now to the Indiana Pacers. George Hill and O'Shea Brissett are free agents. Tyrese Halliburton already, Jesus, it happened so fast, eligible for his, as much as you want to pay him under the CBA, I would pay him all the money. Aaron Nesmith also eligible for an extension. So this is another cap space team. There's a handful of them here. About 32 million in space. They don't have any notable trade exceptions. So another team, although I think we both probably agree they're a little further along, or they have a better sense of what kind of team they're going to be rebuild wise than say Detroit, or I'm trying to think who else we mentioned. The theoretically blown up Chicago Bulls, or some of the
I was going to say they have a better idea of who they are than the Chicago Bulls do. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Which is to say, Halliburton runs the show. We have some guards and small wings that we like, and Miles Turner is our spacer at the 5. Like, not a bad, starting point, even if the ages are kind of out of whack a little bit. So is this a team then that should be spending this money? Or is this another team that I'm just going to listen to you talk and then say, oh, I'd rather take on a bad contract?
I think they should spend it, because especially now, like Utah and them theoretically could have been vying for a lot of the same free agents. I don't think they will be anymore. And there are free agents, like you look at a Grant Williams or PJ Washington, that like kind of fit their timeline. And so you're not accelerating too much. I will say one of my favorite targets for them now, though, and I'm not sure if them drafting Jarris Walker impacts this for you at all. I like the idea of someone who, rather than playing the 4 and then being able to slide up to the 5, you have them, they could play the 3 and the 4. Mm-hmm. And so I immediately think, like, I don't know if they're a Kyle Kuzma team, but like Harrison Barnes, even if you don't want to break the bank, or I think my favorite target for them now is officially Jeremy Grant, because if the Blazers aren't going to pay him, or they don't want to give him like that amount of money, he can play the 3 or the 4, works alongside in a Jarris Walker, Miles Turner front court, maybe a little bit older than you want. But look, there's a chance, like they were pretty competent when they had their entire stable of personnel available last year. And like you said, they have a better theory of how they can play specifically on offense. And it definitely, maybe not as much on defense, but like Detroit is kind of searching. It was definitely searching for itself all year defensively last season. And so I don't think they need to look at this urgently, that we have to spend this money. They could be a cap dumping team, but they also feel like so year by year, in the sense where they don't know if they're going to continue rebuilding or not, that they might be less inclined to take on a multi-year deal. Then, like, if it's Tobias Harris and they're giving up, Daniel Tice for Tobias, like something stupid, like that's not even work. Like TJ McConnell and Daniel Tice for Tobias Harris. Yeah, they might do something like that because Tobias Harris comes off the books. But I don't know if they're going to be as open to the multi-year salary dumps as other teams, which makes me think, yeah, maybe they could come into play for some of these free agents that would actually be a good fit, but maybe they don't quote unquote fit the traditional rebuilding timeline, just because I don't think the Pacers are operating on such a timeline.
Yeah, I think I agree. Shockingly, because I always just vouch for use your cap space for other things. And it's partly because of what you've said, but it's just like this team needs a 4. And even like normally when you start talking about, well, what about taking on Tobias Harris? Like Tobias Harris actually would fit. Like he would make good sense positionally on this team, like a little on the small side, I guess, for a 4, but like
it's 6'9". I think that's fine, right?
Yeah, no, it's especially nowadays. Like it's fine. So, but that wouldn't be my first choice. I think you isolate which of the restricted 4s you think you could get. You start with, just like we talked about, you start with Cam Johnson and move down the ladder and see, which it makes sense, or to waste your, not waste, but to devote your cap space being held up on an offer sheet. I think that's a way to go. Grant makes a lot of sense. I don't know how serious I was or am about it, but like Draymond Green is, someone that we've talked about at that spot, because Turner just affords you, is a way for you to afford having Green as a non-shooter out there. I think, there aren't a lot of 5s that, make that fit as clean as Turner. So you could do all kinds of stuff with, like, I think Dylan Brooks, even, like, he's too small to be a full-time four, but again, Turner's like the skeleton key. It's, at least in theory, where yeah, you got shooting at the 5, so you can stomach having a non-shooter at the 3 or the 4 or whatever. And I think getting a guy that can defend, a guy that's physical, a guy that, the shooting isn't a total must to fit into the 4. I think that's the way you go with the cap space. And if that guy can shoot, awesome, even better. But I think the Pacers weirdly have some flexibility with that spot.
I guess what would also be a good barometer for where they're at, and they could also go like lower end. I mentioned Harrison Barnes. If they wanted to be, they could be a Matisse Thybulle team. I wouldn't hate that.
Again, you can handle the non-shooting. You can deal with it.
I actually wouldn't hate Chris Middleton here either. Would be
you
just hate Chris Middleton. What's the matter with you?
That one's like, now we're really not messing around with us being a young team anymore. Like, we're gonna spend, because I mean, what's it gonna take to get Chris Middleton? You're way over 30, right, per year, and you probably
that's true. You'd have to clear more money. But maybe his market isn't what it is, but he did opt out, so it'll lead me to believe that there's something going on in Milwaukee there.
Yeah.
But I think what would be a good barometer for how much faith they have in this core, what they're actually looking to do, which trade targets are they going to be linked to? And they'll be continuously linked to OG Anunoby. And are they willing to give up stuff for OG Anunoby? Is the perfect fit.
Yeah.
But he is perfect. I talk about how he's overrated for most teams. Indiana's not
here.
One of those teams.
Yeah.
I just don't know what you're not giving up Benedict Mathurin for him. I don't think they would give up Jarris Walker for him. I'm not a Jarris Walker fan, but like the number would ended up being the number 8 pick, like with 4 years left on his rookie. Like, no, I don't know that I'm doing that for OG Anunoby, but like, you have your own picks. You have some of like you don't have any other teams as future picks anymore after this draft. So I just don't know what the packages that they'd be wanting. They have the cap flexibility to be like, hey, we don't need to give you anything like tangible, but I don't know. Like, Chris Duarte is not going to move the needle for Toronto in those times. I know. And that was the best trade proposal I would get from Pacers fans. Like, do you think like Duarte and the Celtics pick would get OG? And it's like, no, I don't. Like, I don't think that would do it.
You wouldn't trade Mathurin for OG?
Would I trade Matt? I mean, OG would have to guarantee he's coming back.
Yeah.
But, like, he's going to sign an extension or he's going to resign a free agency. I'd probably need like, I don't like, you're not going to get Grady Dick and OG for Benedict Mathurin, but like I need to get something else out of that. You need to be ready to compete now. And I just don't. Here's my take. I'm probably going to give up Jarris Walker for OG before I'm giving up Benedict Mathurin for OG.
I don't know how I feel about Walker yet, but I think I would, you could just throw Tice in there and you get there with the money. Mathurin, Tice, and some kind of pick. I think I'd probably do that.
Hey, we'll take OG for Jarris Walker. Like,
I don't know. I mean, your point is right though. Like, you're not just trading for OG. You're trading for OG, and then also the right, or I mean, obligation maybe is a better word, of paying him on his next deal. Which, who knows what the market's going to be. But that's ultimately the hang up with him. Is it's kind of like, well, Siakam at least came out and said, I guess, like, I'm not resigning if you trade me. OG may be that way too. It's just more of an implied than an explicit threat.
Can we take a moment before we just list off some like lower end wing type targets for them and appreciate that we're entering an offseason devoid so far of Miles Turner trade rumors?
Kind of nice, right? Kind of nice.
And now John Collins is officially, like, Miles Turner kind of passed the torch to John Collins. And now John Collins has passed the torch to who? I guess Dame would be the. Well,
it's got to be Dame, because Brad Beal's off the books too. Like, we really have lost several of our. Have to talk about this guy again. Trade candidates. I mean, I think Towns is probably going to climb the ladder.
Who's next up?
Yeah, that's what we should do. Well, save that. That's good content, and that's a whole pod. Who's next on the? We have to talk about them every 3 days. Trade candidates.
I will say just quickly, like, this could be a Derek Jones Jr. team. Do they take a look at Jay Crowder? If you're looking for, I don't want to say lower end, but like not as glitzy trade targets, Jayshawn Tate, Dorian Finney-Smith.
Love that.
I'm just going to throw Herb Jones in here. If we want to reboot the Miles Turner trade rumors, we'll just pencil in Herb Jones. Larry Markkinen, if they were like, hey, we'll give you stuff. Like, you want to talk about Benedict Mathurin, Larry Markkinen. I don't know how Jarris Walker again impacts that, but you could play those two together with Miles Turner.
I
So
feel like the Jazz and all their fans are wondering why you keep trying to trade Markkanen. They're not happy about this.
Keldon Johnson would be someone I kick the tires on too. Like, what do the
Mhm.
Spurs want to do with him? But yeah, those are some other names to consider. Do you want to take us through this next team in the alphabet?
Yes. Well, in the last team in this division, so this makes it easy. This is the Milwaukee Bucks.
It'd be funny if you're like Charlotte Hornets. You're up.
Yeah. Brooke Lopez and Chris Middleton and Joe Ingles and Jay Crowder and Javon Carter are all free agents. The first two of those matter the most in a big way, Lopez and Middleton. Giannis is extension eligible. Not sure what's going to happen there. Don't expect an extension.
I think he needs longer than 2 years. Like, it's just like there's no reason for him to sign it.
It's just like, it's like that argument of like, what's the point if he like tore every knee ligament he had tomorrow? He's getting the max like the second he comes back. So there's like
that out there.
I'm complimenting him. He's that good that it wouldn't matter. He's still going to get, you know what I mean? So this is a second apron team. We have not had one of those in this division, I don't think, as I scroll up. So extremely limited in their options. Those limitations will only intensify as we go forward. And all of these ridiculous salary matching and buyout and draft pick and this, that, and the other mid-level evaporating exceptions come into play down the line. And that's all relevant because if you bring Lopez and Middleton back at market rate salaries or even slightly below that, you're still just your second apron, get comfortable Bucks. So they have minimums to offer. That is going to limit our options for suggesting free agency acquisitions, but that's where they are. So what does this team need? And again, just for a refresher, because it feels like it happened, 10 years ago, bounced in the first round by an 8th seed. Had some real like concerning offensive decline from Giannis. Some would say, I think defensive too. Like the shooting just wasn't there. The free throw thing persisted. All the bad Bucks things where the offense stalls and they don't have enough, they can't create enough good shots happened. So also this team won a title like not long ago with this same
and Giannis was dealing with the back injury too.
Yes, right. That's fair. Have to mention that. But so there is some consternation, I think, that maybe like the window for this team is open, not as wide as it might have seemed like. Certainly when they won it, it seemed like Giannis was just going to stomp the whole league forever. Maybe that'll still happen, but that's all to say this team has real needs and really does not have a lot of avenues to pursue those or to pursue solutions. So if you're, where are you starting? Like what we gotta find someone to do this for us next year as the Bucks.
Just half court like outlets, and I'm talking by outlet, I mean spacing and can make a decision with the ball in their hands on the floor. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing. And you're not going to get a nuclear solution or a seismic solution to that. I know we've seen some like Drew Holiday hypotheticals floated around, but my expectations would be, look, you start this offseason with Brooke Lopez and Chris Middleton. I don't know what team is out there that's going to pay you. You go into Chris Middleton's free agency eyes wide open if he's opting out. And so like he's going to get $35 million or whatever it is they'll pay him. Is there a number where you're like, well, we're not going to pay 35-year-old Brooke Lopez?
I mean, that's the crazy thing is for Middleton and Lopez, I think there are numbers. And the problem, or there should be numbers, but I don't think the Bucks are in a position to say we can't go that high. And that gives those guys have massive leverage, not from the outside, but internally, where it's like you can't it's not just like, well, Middleton's aging and long term. It's like no, you need him next year. And like basically everything after that doesn't matter. And he knows that. So if he wants to drive a hard bargain, and Lopez too, I think Lopez has like a broader market just because he won't cost as much. And I think it's just easier to fit him.
He also might have more leverage, as I think this is not a knock against Giannis Antetokounmpo, but you need that floor spacing big who doesn't compromise your defense alongside Giannis. And while you have Bobby Portis, who comes pretty close to meeting that, it's just Brooke Lopez just finished runner-up for defensive player.
Yeah, I mean, him and Portis have one similarity, which is that they're tall and can shoot. Everything else is different and in favor of Lopez. Like, so that's all to say, like, it kind of almost depends on like how big of an asshole does Lopez, and not that that's the wrong way to put it. Like, how hard a bargain do you want to drive? Because your value to this team is like off the charts. And it doesn't even matter if there's another suitor out there. You can just be ridiculous in your demands. And like, do they want to do that? Do they want to make it hard on Milwaukee? So I don't know what the number is. Like, if it's just in a vacuum, I don't like the idea of giving either of these guys more than maybe Middleton like 2+1, Lopez 2+1. That's as long as I'd want to go. Lopez, you could talk me into 20 million a year. I think he's probably worth that. I don't know if the Bucks are willing to pay that. And Middleton, even 30 is probably my ceiling. Starting at 30 and you have your normal raises, but that's a lot. Like I can't.
What was his player option for? Wasn't his player option like 40 something?
It was 40, but you're theoretically going to get, 2 point something X that over 3 years if you're him. I mean, maybe you feel different about Middleton. I just think at his age and like his game should age well. But I just think he's at a position where typically you're demanding shutdown defense or like, primary, defensive option guy, and he's not really that anymore. So it's the Bucks are in a tough spot. Like I don't envy. I mean, you have Giannis and you probably will contend, but like financially, this gets rough very quickly.
Yeah, and like you're operating on, we can make additives in free agency via the minimum if you're keeping Middleton and Lopez, which by the way I expect them to do. And what else are they supposed to do? They're still going to be really good right now. And look, I don't know that there's a number. I'm not paying Middleton the max, but unless they're really worried about his knee issues. As you said, his game should age well, and he's just so important. But I'm looking at free agent wise. Yuta Watanabe would be a great fit here. Someone who can knock down a three. You don't really want to putting the ball on the floor too much, though we can do that a little bit. I have Javonte Green. Is he a good enough shooter? But he gives you a lot defensively. And look, part of what goes into this when you're looking at kind of I have O'Shea Brissett as well. TJ Warren as a flyer. What's happening with Jay Crowder? He's leaving, it sounds like, because he was like, I don't know why they traded for me. I guess they could come over the top with an offer, but it doesn't sound like he didn't play a ton in the playoffs. He did hit threes while he was there during the regular season. So like that kind of matters to this. But it's harder to fill. It's easier to find shooting with the minimum probably than it is for that kind of secondary creation. I have Shake Milton. This would be a good Shake Milton destination. That's like it. Like when you're talking about their minimums, I don't know who else in the point guard market. Like Dennis Schroeder, too expensive. And I don't think he provides enough spacing. Like Dennis Smith Jr. is probably going for more than the minimum. And will he shoot it well enough? Corey Joseph, Reggie Jackson, Jordan McLaughlin, Derrick Rose. Like these are just names that are wildly uninspiring. And you're not going to get into Trey Jones business. Ayo Dosunmu, not even a good enough shooter. You're not getting him for the minimum. Anything they make, any substantial moves they make via trade. And like their best package is basically, well, we can start step laddering. Maybe I'm sure they would move Bobby Portis in the right deal, although Lopez's age might make that tough. But you step ladder your way with salary, Marjon Beauchamp, and 1 first-round pick. And I just don't know. I'm not saying you have to give up all of that for the guys that I listed, but some trade targets that spring to mind. I still think Bojan Bogdanovic might make this team the favorite to come out of the East. That would be, I don't know if that's spicy, but if you acquire Bojan Bogdanovic, I'm picking, I don't care what Boston just did. We have to wait and see what Miami does. I'd pick Milwaukee to come out. I might pick Milwaukee to come out of the East anyway. So that's my guy for them still. I think he is just perfect for what they need. Also, Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, Alec Burks. What does it take? And I'm only listing him. I know he said he wants to retire there, but they have 16 players under contract right now. Kenrich Williams would be great for this team.
Yeah.
And that might be, Buddy Hield would be his number, and Bojan's number is a little bit difficult to get to, but like when you start using Connaughton and Grayson Allen, like you're kind of there. I don't know if anyone else springs to mind, but you are at the point where some people might say, well, I'm not giving up a 2029 first round pick for Bojan or Buddy Hield. You protect it, but yes, you are.
Yeah, I think you are. Why are you not? I had a couple other that jumped out at me. Like, do you take a shot at Danny Green? Like, do you want to just see if he can be your Wes Matthews, where you thought he was totally washed and then maybe had a little bit left? Damian Lee, the Suns are going to want to bring him back. We're just talking minimum guys, right? Like, I don't think it's getting you Hamidou Diallo. Maybe you see if, like, does Will Barton have anything left? Does Terrence Ross have anything left? Like, we're really just trying to find guys that can. You need to see
if you're going to go like the Danny Green, Terrence Ross stuff. It's like, okay, guys who have proven they can be off-ball shooters, like Hamidou Diallo. Yeah, if you could afford them, it's just a no. I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
It's tough. Let's see. Got anything else on the Bucks, or you want to wrap this?
No. Why don't you take us out of here?
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. As Dan mentioned at the top, and as you should just have like burned into your brain by now, follow us on all the socials at HardwoodKnocks, at HardwoodKnocks, if I could speak. on Twitter and TikTok at Hardwood_Knocks on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe there. Wherever you get your podcast, rate, review, give us 5 stars, tell your friends, tell your enemies, buy some merch. The links, join our Discord. We haven't done them in a while, but we will get back into them regularly, get some mailbag stuff done. So if you have questions, team specific, nothing's too niche, we will answer those questions. So join the Discord to participate there. And I think that's going to cover it. So as always, we close with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and apology to Jarrett Allen.